Thank you. Thank you for being here. How's everybody this morning? So our topic is the cosmic counterpart, which Richard mentioned in his, I just tore this up, in his opening prayer, which I am on cloud 9 between Richard and Al. I'm just so completely up here. Now, where I got this title is from a chapter in Eric Butterworth's book, The Universe is Calling. And I was so struck by it that I wanted to share with you all of the wisdom I've garnered lately by reading Butterworth yet again. So in this chapter, Butterworth talks about how, well, first of all, the nature of effective prayer and how our understanding of the cosmic counterpart is crucial to our prayers being answered in the way we want them to be answered. Not in some random way that's not what we want, but in a perfect way that is exactly what we want. So I want to start off by talking a little bit more about prayer. From time immemorial, human beings, Homo sapiens, have engaged in some sort of spiritual ritual in an effort to communicate with the divine power, the creative source of life. It doesn't matter what they call it or how they conceive of it, but even as far back as 15,000 years ago, we see evidence of people communicating with God, people reaching out to the divine. And prayer has evolved tremendously across the millennia to include many different expressions. Different people do it in different ways. We have our own way of praying here. If you're new, you'll catch a flavor of that. If you're old, you're probably used to it. But still, we have our own way of praying, as does every teaching and every group of people in the world. But what's common about all types of prayer is that they recognize the existence of a divine power, and they make evident our desire to access it. People want to talk to God. Now, I'm interested in knowing exactly what they want to talk to God about, right? I mean, why do people pray? Butterworth claims that in general, people use prayer to change unwanted conditions in their life. There are other reasons people pray, but the main reason is to change unwanted conditions. And he identifies 5 different types of prayer. The first of those is prayer of sacrifice. Has anyone ever tried one of those? Okay. Normally you use these when your God is an angry God and you need to appease him. Okay. And then there are prayers of praise where your God is a very vain God, so you have to flatter him. Oh, all-powerful, almighty, perfect one. Yes? Okay, that's a vain God. Prayers of supplication. We've all done this, right? You get down on your knees and you beg, oh, please, please, God. We try to cajole a distant or uncommunicative God this way. And then there are prayers of repetition. I grew up in a religion where prayers were done by rote over and over again. I think the idea behind this is if you say it enough times, God will finally pay attention and give you what you want. And then we have prayers of invocation, which typically are used to as opening prayers in a particular setting. Now, in each of these examples, what stands out for me is that the prayer is made to a deity outside the person praying, right? Now, Butterworth notes that even within Christianity, there is not an understanding of the Lord's Prayer, for example. It's repeated over and over. It's done as a tradition, as a ritual, but they don't really listen to the words, because if they did, they would understand what Jesus meant when he articulated the Lord's Prayer. The great rabbi himself believed that God already knew what we wanted before we even asked, which begs the question, why ask at all? Why should we ask God for anything? Well, in metaphysics, we don't ask, do we? What do? We claim our good. We assert the truth. We know that God is all there is and there is absolutely nothing else. And we believe that Spirit is ever present in its entirety, in every place, at all times. God is centered in us. What we need to do is get centered in God. Actually, what we need to do is come to the realization that we are already centered in God because there is no place else we could possibly be. Anywhere we are, we're in it. We're right smack in the middle of it. So here in metaphysics, there is something so beautiful about the way we pray. And I forget sometimes, I take it for granted, but this past week in my Science of Mind 300 class, I was listening to my students pray aloud, one by one, as part of an assignment in the classroom, and it struck me again how amazingly powerful affirmative prayer really is. And I remembered how I felt the very first time I heard such a thing. It really was music to my ears. Someone spoke the truth about me, and I heard it all the way to my soul. And even though I had never been exposed to that type of prayer before, it was somehow familiar to me. But it would have to be, wouldn't it? Because when somebody speaks the truth, it resonates for us. Even if we are hearing it for the first time, it resonates. We know it's true. Can anybody relate? Yeah. So our method of praying is spiritual, to be certain, but it's also scientific, which means that it works according to a law. It conforms to a principle, in our case, divine principle. So an interesting question arises, which is, if prayer is a science, why isn't my prayer always answered? If prayer is a science, why isn't my prayer always answered? Well, this is tantamount to asking, if electricity operates according to a principle, why doesn't the light come on every time I flip the switch? Well, there are lots of reasons, right? I mean, maybe the bulb is burned out, or the lamp is not plugged in, or a circuit is interrupted. Or if you're in Southern California, maybe there's a rolling blackout, right? San Diegans, can I get a witness? Love those rolling blackouts. Do these kinds of glitches occur in the realm of prayer? Well, maybe, maybe not. Yeah, it's possible. But Butterworth says this: in an orderly universe, the need and the answer are one. The need and the answer are one.